Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever felt that weird little jump of anxiety just from a specific phone ringtone?
Oh, yeah, or that almost automatic reach for your phone when it buzzes.
Exactly. Even when you're not expecting anything. It makes you wonder, right? What if the things driving those reactions, maybe even deeper fears or habits, are actually, well, simpler than we think?
That's kind of what's fascinating here. We're diving into the basic architecture of behavior itself.
Yeah.
So today we're taking a deep dive into two really powerful ideas about learning. Classical conditioning, Pavlov, early 1900s, and operant conditioning, which Skinner developed starting around the 30s through the 50s.
Right. And our mission for you, our listener, is really to get into how these two things work, what makes them different. We want to strip away maybe the academic jargon, get to the core ideas. We'll walk through the basics, look at some surprising everyday examples,
Yeah, relatable stuff.
and hopefully give you a new way to look at your own reactions and, why other people do the things they do.
And connecting this to the bigger picture, understanding this isn't just like textbook knowledge. It's a toolkit
A toolkit, yeah.
for figuring out everything from why we suddenly crave, I don't know, pizza, to why we get stuck in certain habits that don't even make sense sometimes.
Okay.
You should leave this deep dive really understanding how learning, often without us even noticing, shapes pretty much everything. Your actions too.
Okay, so let's start with the one most people probably think of first. Classical conditioning, Pavlovian conditioning, sometimes called respondent conditioning.
Right. That's the one. Comes from Ivan Pavlov's work way back in the early 20th century.
And at its heart, it's really about learning through association, isn't it? Linking things together.
Exactly. It's how some neutral thing, something that means nothing initially, can get so strongly connected to a natural biological response that it starts triggering that response all by itself.
Like Pavlov's famous dogs. That's the classic example.
It's the absolute classic. So food naturally makes a dog salivate. That's biological. You don't teach that. The food is the unconditioned stimulus, and the drooling is the unconditioned response. Automatic.
Unlearned, right. But then Pavlov introduces something totally unrelated, like a bell sound.
A neutral stimulus. Initially, that bell means absolutely nothing to the dog regarding food. It's just noise.
Okay, and this is where the learning, the conditioning kicks in. He rings the bell, then presents the food. Rings the bell, presents the food, over and over.
Repetition is key. And over time, that neutral bell sound transforms. It stops being just noise and becomes a signal, a predictor of food. It becomes the conditioned stimulus.
And the dog starts salivating just to the bell sound, even if the food doesn't show up immediately.
Precisely. That salivation, now triggered by the learned signal, the bell, is the conditioned response. It's a learned reaction based purely on that formed association.
Wow, such a simple setup, but powerful.
Incredibly powerful. And that whole initial phase where the bell and food are paired up and the dog starts making the connection, that's called acquisition. That's the learning period.
But does that learning last forever? Like, what if Pavlov just kept ringing the bell day after day, but never brought any food? Does the dog just keep drooling?
Good question. That leads us to extinction. If the conditioned stimulus, the bell, is presented repeatedly without the unconditioned stimulus, the food, the conditioned response, the salivation will gradually weaken and eventually disappear.
So it fades away.
It fades, yeah. But here's a fascinating twist. Extinction doesn't necessarily mean the learning is completely erased.
No.
Sometimes, after a rest period, if you ring the bell again, the salivation might suddenly reappear, though maybe weaker. We call that spontaneous recovery.
Huh. So it's like the connection is still there, just sleeping.
Kind of. Like it's dormant,
Yeah.
ready to pop back up into the right conditions.
Yeah.
It suggests the original learning pathway isn't totally wiped out.
That makes you think. And what about similar sounds? If the dog learned with one bell, would it react to a slightly different bell?
Yes, that can happen. That's generalization. The conditioned response might transfer to stimuli that are similar, but not identical, to the original conditioned stimulus. So, yeah, a slightly different bell tone might still make the dog salivate a bit.
Okay.
But organisms are also pretty smart. They can learn discrimination. They can learn to tell the difference between the specific conditioned stimulus and other similar stimuli that don't predict the unconditioned stimulus.
So the dog eventually learns, okay, this specific bell means food, but that other sound, like maybe the doorbell, doesn't.
Exactly. Discrimination refines the response, makes it more specific.
And you really do see this stuff everywhere. That little buzz your phone makes, the actual message or social interaction is the unconditioned stimulus, right? It gives you that little bit of, I don't know, connection, a good feeling.
The natural response.
Yeah. But over time, the buzz itself, which was totally neutral at first, becomes the conditioned stimulus. It triggers that little dopamine hit, that feeling of anticipation, even before you see the message.
It's Pavlov in your pocket, basically.
Totally. Or think about a student who feels their stomach clench just hearing the school bell. Maybe because it got associated with stressful exams or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's classical conditioning learned associations, triggering often involuntary emotional or physiological responses.
Okay, so that covers those reflexive sort of automatic reactions. But what about behaviors that feel more voluntary? Things we choose to do, like, a dog learning to sit on command or someone working harder hoping for a bonus.
Right. That's where the other giant of learning theory comes in, B.F. Skinner. While Pavlov showed us how associations trigger reactions, Skinner explored how the consequences of our actions shape whether we do them again. This is operant conditioning. He really developed this from the 1930s onwards.
Operant conditioning. And this one, I feel, really changes how you see everyday interactions. Because the core idea is just that. Behavior is driven by what happens afterwards.
Precisely. It's not about linking two stimuli together like Pavlov. It's about the link between a behavior and its consequence. Does the consequence make you more likely or less likely to repeat that behavior?
Okay. And Skinner broke this down, right, into different types of consequences.
He did. 4 main types. First, you have positive reinforcement. This is probably the most intuitive one. You add something desirable after a behavior, which makes that behavior stronger, more likely to happen again.
Like giving a kid a sticker for cleaning their room. You add the sticker, positive, they're more likely to clean again.
Exactly. Or getting praise from your boss for a good report. That's positive reinforcement.
Okay, makes sense. Then there's negative reinforcement, which sounds like punishment, but isn't.
Right. This trips people up.
Yeah.
Negative reinforcement also strengthens behavior, but it does so by removing something unpleasant or aversive.
Removing something bad, okay?
Think about hitting the snooze button on your annoying alarm clock. The alarm sound is unpleasant. Hitting snooze removes the sound, even if just temporarily. That removal reinforces the snooze-hitting behavior. Or taking painkillers to get rid of a headache. Removing the pain reinforces taking the pills next time.
Ah, okay. So negative here just means taking something away, not bad. Both positive and negative reinforcement increase behavior.
Exactly. Now, we get to the consequences that decrease or weaken behavior. Punishments.
Right.
Positive punishment involves adding something unpleasant after a behavior.
So like getting a speeding ticket. You did the behavior, speeding, you get something added, the ticket, the fine, which is meant to make you speed less.
Perfect example. Or maybe getting scolded for being late. Adding the scolding makes lateness less likely.
Okay. And the last one must be negative punishment.
You got it.
Yeah.
Negative punishment removes something desirable or pleasant after behavior to make it less likely.
So like taking away a teenager's phone privileges for breaking curfew. You remove something they like, phone, to reduce the behavior, breaking curfew.
Precisely. So reinforcement, whether positive or negative, builds behavior up. Punishment, whether positive or negative, knocks behavior down. Keeping that distinction clear is really key.
Well, definitely. And Skinner didn't just stop there, did he? There were techniques like shaping.
Oh yeah, shaping is huge, especially in training. It's about rewarding successive approximations, little steps toward a final, desired, complex behavior.
So you don't expect a dog to suddenly learn a complex trick all at once.
Not usually, no. You might reward just looking at the object, then touching it, then picking it up, and so on. You reinforce each step closer to the goal. It's how you build complex skills piece by piece.
Makes sense. And how often you get the reward or punishment matters too, right? The schedules.
Absolutely crucial. Schedules of reinforcement. These determine the pattern when and how often reinforcement is delivered, and they dramatically affect how strong and persistent a behavior becomes.
Okay, so what are the main types?
Well, you have fixed ratio. Reinforcement comes after a fixed, predictable number of responses. Like getting paid, piece rate. You make 10 widgets, you get paid. Make another 10, get paid again.
Predictable. What about unpredictable?
That's variable ratio. Reinforcement comes after an unpredictable number of responses. This is the slot machine schedule. You don't know if the next pull will pay off, or the one after that, or maybe 10 pulls later. This uncertainty makes the behavior incredibly resistant to extinction. People keep pulling that lever.
And that's why things like social media notifications can be so addictive. You don't know when the next like or comment will pop up.
Exactly. It hooks you with that variable ratio reward.
Yeah.
Keeps you checking.
Wow. Okay, what else?
Then there are interval schedules, based on time. Fixed interval means reinforcement comes for the first response after a fixed, predictable amount of time has passed, like getting a weekly paycheck.
So you might slack off right after payday and then work harder as the next payday approaches.
Often, yeah. There's typically a lull after reinforcement, then activity ramps up as the time gets closer.
And the last one, variable interval.
Variable interval. Reinforcement comes for the first response after an unpredictable amount of time has passed. Think checking your email. You don't know when the next important message will arrive. Could be now, could be in an hour. So you tend to check at a relatively steady rate.
Or like those pop quizzes in school.
Perfect example. If quizzes are unpredictable, variable interval, students tend to study more consistently because they never know when the chance for reinforcement or avoiding punishment will occur.
You really do see this everywhere. Parents giving allowance for chores, positive reinforcement.
For dog trainers using treats when a dog sits, positive reinforcement again.
Employees working towards a performance bonus.
Skinner's principles in action, absolutely.
Okay, so we've dug into Pavlov and Skinner separately. They both explain learning, but they feel fundamentally different. Where's the main split? How do we tell them apart?
That's the crucial distinction. Classical conditioning, Pavlov's world, is all about the association between stimuli. A neutral stimulus gets linked with an unconditioned stimulus.
Right, the bell and the food.
And the learner is pretty passive in this. The response, like salivation or fear, is involuntary, it's reflexive, it's elicited or triggered by the stimulus.
Okay, passive learner, involuntary response, stimulus association, and operant.
Operant conditioning, Skinner's focus, is all about the link between a behavior and its consequence.
The action and what happens next.
Exactly. The learner here is active. They are emitting a behavior, doing something. And the response is generally voluntary, sitting, working, pressing a lever. It's about choices and outcomes.
Active learner, voluntary response, behavior consequence link. Okay, that clarifies it.
And knowing this difference is vital because these theories aren't just lab concepts. They're applied everywhere, often together.
Like in education.
Absolutely. Classroom rules often use operant principles, rewards for good behavior, consequences for breaking rules. But test anxiety, that might be classical conditioning, associating the classroom with stress.
And marketing must use this constantly.
Oh, definitely. Think about ads pairing a product with happy people or cool music. That's classical conditioning creating a positive emotional association. Loyalty programs giving points for purchases. That's operant positive reinforcement.
Right, and therapy too, you mentioned.
Hugely important. Exposure therapy for phobias, for instance, is basically classical conditioning in reverse. You gradually expose someone to the feared stimulus without the negative outcome, extinguishing the fear response.
Unlearning the association.
Yeah, exactly. And many behavior modification programs use operant principles, rewarding desired behaviors, maybe using negative punishment like time out for undesirable ones to treat all sorts of issues.
And obviously, animal training.
Fundamentally operant. Clicker training uses a click, a conditioned reinforcer initially paired with treats, to mark the exact moment a desired behavior occurs, followed by the treat, primary reinforcer. Shaping complex behaviors relies entirely on rewarding those successive steps.
It really does feel like these theories provide the invisible strings guiding so much behavior.
That's a great way to put it.
So let's try to wrap this up. What's the big takeaway here? We've gone from Pavlov's dogs drooling at bells.
A neutral stimulus becoming conditioned, triggering an involuntary learned response. Pure association.
All the way to Skinner, showing how consequences, getting that treat, or maybe losing privileges shape our voluntary actions, making us more or less likely to do things.
Right. And with this framework, you can start looking at the world differently. You start seeing these patterns. Is this person reacting automatically, almost reflexively, to a cue? That smells like classical conditioning.
Like that jolt of anxiety from a specific sound.
Exactly. Or are they changing what they do based on expected rewards or punishments? That's likely operant conditioning.
Like the child learning to say please to get a cookie, or maybe cleaning their room to get their allowance. You can really start to differentiate.
You can. You see the difference between that reflexive fear someone might develop of, say, white coats after painful experiences at the doctor's office that's classical, versus a dog deliberately learning to sit because it gets a treat that's operant.
And even though they focus on different things, association versus consequence, they're both profoundly relevant, aren't they?
Absolutely. They explain so much, from simple habits to complex social interactions, how parents use allowance, how companies build brand loyalty, even why those unpredictable pop quizzes might actually encourage more consistent studying.
It's a variable interval schedule again.
Yep. You see these principles woven into the fabric of education, marketing, therapy, training. Understanding them helps us understand the why behind so much behavior.
So, our hope really is that this deep dive hasn't just given you information, but maybe a new lens, a new pair of eyes.
Hmm.
The next time you feel that unexpected pull, that reaction to a sound or a smell, or you see someone changing their habits, maybe stopping to think.
Is this Pavlov? Is this Skinner? Am I reacting based on association, or is my behavior being shaped by consequence?
Right, and maybe even asking, how am I being conditioned in ways I don't realize? Or how am I maybe unintentionally using these principles to shape the behavior of others?
Thinking about it that way, well, it could genuinely change how you navigate your world and maybe even how you understand yourself.